Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith, founder of Tact. And while attending SocialWest in Calgary for their 10th anniversary, I had the opportunity to sit down with Sabaa Quao, venture studio advisor, AI strategist, and one of the most forward-thinking people I think I met there. We explored synthetic data, ecosystem-driven business models, venture building, and the technologies that could reshape how organizations make decisions over the next decade. If you're curious about where AI, data, and business strategy are heading, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. I'm here at SocialWest 10-year anniversary with Sabaa Quao. You are part of a group that does venture studios, and I met you last night at one of the SocialWest gatherings, and I was like, here's a guy who knows what's going on in the world 10 years from now. So no pressure, but tell me what you do day to day. Like, tell me what your interest is. We've talked about synthetic data and a few other points, but I just want to know, who are you day to day?
Okay. Every day, I'm advising a startup of some kind. I have a narrow thesis around AI and fintech companies, and I spent the last year and a half building out a venture studio model, working with a small cohort of startups, and figuring out which ones I thought had the best market potential, and then helping them grow, whether it was pitching for new business or whether it was helping them grow their investor base.
And the ones that you felt had the most potential, what were the commonalities there?
Commonalities. This is one of the things I'll be speaking about on stage, but there are two things that jump out. One, they have some kind of ecosystem that they've built. And the way to think about ecosystems is, if you think of what happened after the dot-com meltdown and all the companies that came out of that, Google AdWords, Twitter, YouTube, they all ended up building ecosystems. And when you sit here 20, 25 years later, they're the ones that define the space that we work in for marketing. So ecosystems are important. The second thing I look for are business models that compound. And think of compounding the traditional way of, if you put money away and it compounds over time. Compounding is described as the most powerful force in the universe. So what happens when you have a data model that compounds the same way as money? It means that over time, it gets bigger and larger and more stable, really, over time. So when I think about service models, I feel, don't want to be in the service business. If I think about a model...
I'm in trouble. That's funny.
But if I think of a service model that has a compound factor in it, then over time, it actually gets stronger. So you have to think of the data as an asset. And that's why my favorite company to work with is a company called Arima. We're building a synthetic data model of society.
Yeah, I had a presentation by them at an event in the last year, and what they're doing is absolutely mind-blowing. So let's dive into that a little bit more.
Okay. So the founder, Winston Lai, built a synthetic model of the population. He has done it for Canada, he's done it for the US, and they've just built out UK and Germany. So they can continue to build out those models of an algorithmic representation of you, an algorithmic representation of me, and that's really about how you pull together data to represent that dot or that person. The moment you have one for the entire population, that's when I had the big aha moment. And here we are in marketing, and if I said to you, every single one of our clients is going to want to build predictive models around their customers. Every single one.
Yeah.
You could be a cafe owner with 3 cafes. You could be a massive retailer. You could be a telco. But if you have your customer data and you say, what are the kinds of scenarios that I can build in order to make a decision around which offer I put in front of them? What's a good offer that distracts them from a competitor? Any number of models, and that's really what AI is good for, running scenarios. But you need the integrity of your data set. So everyone says, oh, well, we have all this first-party data. And we'll say, well, how many attributes or data points do you have?
Actually have? Yeah.
Some of them have 100. Some of them have 500. The synthetic dot is built around 25 to 50,000 attributes. So
per one
per
single person,
dot,
like
yeah,
per dot.
per dot.
And is that one dot like a look-alike? Does it represent a larger population of people?
No, it represents closer down to the individual level.
Wow.
And so when you think of that opportunity to take a first-party data set and overlap it with the synthetic data set, essentially we help fill in the blanks. And the reason you want to fill in the blanks is if you start to build a predictive model, if you start to use your AI smartly, you want to reduce the number of errors or missing pieces of information as early as you can. And let me give you an example of a missing piece of information.
Okay.
Think of every time you're asked to fill out a form online. And so you put January 1st, 2001. We all lie because we don't want to give that information.
Right.
Take that.
Way too honest. I never do that.
Well, but you've at some point not given a truthful answer.
Fair enough.
So think of first-party data as always under assault of some kind, whether it's that kind of distortion. Take that distortion, multiply it by 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. You're building in an error. And that's not the only problem. There are people who are professional contesters who basically are not your customer. They're there for something else. There is fraud. There are bots. So first-party data is always under assault. Synthetic data only gets better and better.
Right.
Because you're always filling in with continuous new data to increase the integrity of that data set.
And that data is being artificially created, or is it just building upon itself over time based on actual facts that are coming in?
You start with actual facts. So you might start with census data, you might start with customer data, you start off with something real, and you're adding in more real dots, but the synthetic model is about growing it around, the person isn't identified, so it's privacy first.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how it gets richer over time.
So I don't know whether to be terrified by that, because I think some people would hear that and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much information about me. Or I would actually say on the optimistic side, doesn't every human want to be known? And so from that perspective, you're actually getting down, you're drilling down into someone's psyche and everything about them at an individual level, I think is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And no?
So let's look at two sides of who encounters that personalization.
Right.
As a consumer, at some point, if there's too much personalization, you get creeped out.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through this point where they say, is my phone listening to me?
Yeah.
So we all have an underlying suspicion of someone knowing you too well.
Yeah.
But if I'm a brand and I'm just building models around who is our best customer, who is our fastest growing customer, which customer spends the most money, and you're trying to understand them down to the individual level, it's because you might be building a marketing promotion that says, well, where should we put our billboards? Or where should we put our drink machines? Or where should we put this offer? Or what time of day? Or which day should we put on this offer? That is a kind of personalization and customization, but it's not creepy in any way. I've just described ways to narrow down a scenario.
Yeah.
So I don't think it always has to be in the realm of, oh, I know everything about you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the main point, because at some point we're all overloaded by that kind of personalization.
Well, and I think there are a lot of people, and it's not just marketers. I mean, this is a marketing podcast, so I think marketers do tend to skew more on this side, but they do want to be known. They do want if they're going to get fed ads, they want something that's actually relevant, contextual
timely
to
and
them.
relevant, contextual.
Right? So I think that from that perspective, it sounds like the synthetic data models that you guys are working on will get us closer to actually serving people more of what they actually want, which I think is a beautiful thing.
That would be at the discretion of the brand.
Yeah.
Saying, now that we've used the synthetic data, now that we know what models or scenarios we want to work with, they will then turn that into marketing. And then it turns into just smarter marketing.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask another tricky question. If we are starting to dive in to gather this information, do the privacy policies around what those organizations do as they move into collecting and creating more synthetic data sets and data models, do they have to change those policies for people?
No.
Or is it already just what they've already got and you're just literally building upon it?
Yeah, we're privacy first.
Yeah.
But they will follow the same rules and regulations around their customer data set.
Right.
So that way, they'll make their own policy decisions, and I think that's the right decision for them to make.
Yeah.
If you're a bank, you might have very different privacy and policy considerations
Yes, that's
than if
actually
you're a
a
retailer.
really good point. Far more conservative. Yeah.
And I think they should maintain that high degree of integrity of their policies.
Yeah. So where do you see I think you mentioned that you see big brands using this, but you also see it kind of hitting smaller,
Yes.
like smaller startup businesses or small retail shops and
Yes.
so on. What does that future look like 5 years from now? Is
Okay.
synthetic data models just something that everybody knows and understands? Is it leveraging?
Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, Sam Altman was being interviewed by Nicholas Thompson, and he talked about the use of synthetic data to build their models.
Yeah.
So it's in there.
Yeah.
Synthetic data is also being used around models for self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Saying, how do you make
Yeah.
sure all these scenarios cover so that the car stops in time if a child runs out in traffic?
Yeah.
Those are synthetic models.
Yeah.
So what is this future? Well, there's a kind of accessibility. If you are using Claude and some of your synthetic data is being used with Claude's tools, then you could be a small and medium-sized retailer taking your customer data, running scenarios, but your data set is augmented by synthetic data. So I think we'll get to a point of accessibility. And one of the things I loved about Arima was they said to me, we're going to try and make sure these tools are accessible as possible all the way through an organization. So right now, when you're completely dependent on our head of data and analytics versus everyone in the organization being able to interrogate a data set. And when we think about how we
It's
use
like
large
democratizing
language,
that data internally. Yeah.
so think of how we use chatbots now. Anyone can ask anything. So that's already flattened
Yeah.
this or narrowed the gap on who has access to information, but you still need to be good at it with insight. So this is where I think models have to change in terms of what is the interface that allows you to interrogate a data set, even if you are on your first week or month of the job. You're still going to be coached by your organization, but I think that access is going to mirror what we've seen from the accessibility that chatbots have enabled.
Okay. Do you see this as an industry that is, industry is probably not the right word, but the usage of data, synthetic data, as being something that tech companies really get right now, but the rest of the world isn't really up to speed with yet? Or do you see it being adopted already? Like, where are we in that journey?
So marketing is behind.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it in autonomous driving, med pharma, figuring out drug interactions. We've seen it in fraud detection in financial services. Marketers, it's just very much at the beginning of the synthetic data curve. I think it will become completely mainstream, which is why I make that assertion that every one of your clients at some point will say, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
And so how do we make sure that those tools are accessible? And right now, a lot of Arima's tools are for small and medium-sized agencies. Those are the first tool sets that they've built. So that's already a point of access.
Right. That's great. Well, it sounds like the rest of the crowd has gotten out of the the sessions. It's getting quite loud in here. So we'll wrap it up. But I wanted to thank you so much for coming in today. That was great. And for those marketers out there who are not familiar with synthetic data, I don't know why I keep slurring over that one. Synthetic data. Then where can they find out more information on you and the work that you're doing?
One, they should come to the keynote at the end of the
at the session. That'll be, I guess that'll be available online afterwards.
They can look me up on LinkedIn, Sabaa Quao. They can go to arimadata.com to see the Arima site. And, the collection of startups I'm working with, they can ask me about, but it comes down to if they have questions about this idea of ecosystems or compounding, then people should reach out, and happy to talk about that all day.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.